Impact of Brexit on economy worse than COVID.
Here's a summary of the article.
The impact of Brexit on the UK economy will be worse in the long run compared to the coronavirus pandemic, the chairman of the Office for Budget Responsibility has said. Richard Hughes said leaving the EU will reduce the UK's potential GDP by about 4% in the long term. He said forecasts showed the pandemic would reduce GDP by a further 2%. In the long term, it is the case that Brexit has a bigger impact than the pandemic, he told the BBC. His comments come after the OBR said the cost of living could rise at its fastest rate for 30 years, with suggestions inflation could hit almost 5%. Speaking after Wednesday's budget, Mr. Hughes said recent data showed the impact of Brexit was broadly consistent with the OBR's assumption that the leaving the EU would reduce our long-run GDP by around 4%. We think that the effect of the pandemic will reduce that output by a further 2%, he added. In a growing economy, quarterly GDP will be slightly higher than the quarter before, a sign that people are doing more work and getting a little bit richer. Both the pandemic and Brexit have played a part in current supply chain issues across the UK, and have further exposed the scarcity of lorry drivers, which has resulted in recent shortages of products for businesses and some empty shelves for customers. In the OBR's latest report, the independent body said supply bottlenecks had been exacerbated by changes in the migration and trading regimes following Brexit. Supply chain issues has led to the government granting short-term visas to EU workers across certain sectors, including the haulage industry.
This post received a score of 22,000, with an upvote ratio of 89%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
The supply issues alone are a nightmare. We were low on supplies everywhere at the restaurant I work at. No deliveries were coming because they couldn't get any. Came to a point we almost ran out of CO2 for the draft beers.
Employ. Breathes boss. What are you doing? Employ. Breathing. Boss. Breathe into the CO2 receptacle, you knob. It's a precious resource. CO2 doesn't grow on trees. The opposite, actually.
You see, we must fight the trees. Fight them to the last sapling. And this. Taps CO2 tank. This will be our greatest weapon.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
EU be like, bye Felicia. Turns out the rest of the EU is fine without the UK, but the UK is not fine without the EU. If only someone could have foreseen this.
And it's not like the EU has any incentive to be nice to them and plenty of incentives to fuck them up.
The EU was very kind to the UK IMO. They negotiated IDK how many extensions. Whereas they could have gone simply, oh you want out. Then just GTFO. And let the UK out at the first deadline, with no deal, letting borders be simply shut down overnight and whatever mayhem would take place at the Irish border. I think the EU leaders were much more concerned about the lives of the ordinary UK citizenry than the UK's leadership.
Greater than they could have gone simply, oh you want out? Then just GTFO, and let the UK out at the first deadline, with no deal. If that happened, the prevailing narrative would have been that all the negative effects of Brexit were the result of the EU's spite, and a bunch of Europeans residing in the UK probably would have gotten lynched as a result. By granting them the extensions and opportunities to back out, now any attempts from the UK to shift the blame onto the EU falls flat.
Out of curiosity, what is the prevailing narrative now in the UK? Do the Brits take responsibility and blame themselves? Do they blame each other? Or do they still blame the EU?
I remember the day after Brexit was official and UK was out. There were people all over Reddit with the, see? The sky didn't fall. Well, UK is a nation of firsts. First nation to embargo and impose economic sanctions on itself.
In a way, isn't that quite British of them?
We can no longer conquer anyone else, so let's conquer ourselves.
Irrefutable logic, really.
Let the looting of the conquered people commence.
Commence? I'd argue the looting started long ago.
Oh, yeah, and all that money was, lost in the wash.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.